Billiken fans were like pissed off for 48 hours and were like, what happened to loyalty? And the reality is that he may never have actually had any inkling to go to North Carolina State. Josh Schertz is the head coach of the St. Louis University Billikens. They had a great year, got back to the March Madness tournament. He is like a hot coach candidate all the time now because he's won everywhere he's been. And just before the tournament started, he agreed verbally to a 6-year, $20 million contract. So Billiken fans were like, this is great. Then he didn't actually sign the deal until like the next weekend. So then it was like, okay, well, at least he signed it. Well, he was interviewed after he signed it, and after he went on, he did an interview on one of the local radio stations for like 40 minutes talking about how much he loves St. Louis. That was a Friday. The following day, North Carolina State, looking for a basketball coach, flew into St. Louis and met with him. And because of Twitter, this became public and everyone knew about it. And so Billiken fans are like freaking out because North Carolina State, even though, you know, they're not like Duke, obviously, but they're in that conference. They're a major Power 4 conference team, right? So like they have massive funds.
Is that where Michael Jordan came out of?
He went to North Carolina, not North Carolina State.
Sorry.
So, but the Wolfpack won a championship like in the 80s, and like they're not like they're like a middle of the pack big conference team, whereas SLU is the top dog in the smaller conference, right?
Okay.
So there was a lot of people that were worried about all this, and Schertz, obviously, like people are reacting in real time. And the following day on a Sunday, after it was reported by like, you know, sports guys like Frank Cusimano and such that North Carolina State's got massive NIL funds, and Schertz says that the only way he would leave is if he was like just blown away by an offer. People were like freaking out. That's like, what's the point of you signing your contract if you're just going to back out and leave? So the next day, so this is all in like a 48-hour period where he was on a show talking about how much he loves St. Louis. The next day, North Carolina State meets with him, flies into St. Louis and meets with him for 3 hours. Then there's reports about the NIL money and all this stuff. The following day, Schertz releases a long statement, like just an image infographic that he posted on Twitter, and obviously it got shared. And he alerted Chris May, the athletic director, that he's staying put. So he's still with the Billikens. The whole point of this story and why it's relevant to social media is that without social media allows people, when it comes to this type of thing, you're seeing how the sausage is made behind the scenes, right? So like if no one knew that North Carolina State was flying in town, no one would have been upset, and he still would have remained the coach, and he remained the coach anyway. But because of social media, this whole thing became a massive, not scandal, but people were like Billiken fans were like pissed off for 48 hours and were like, what happened to loyalty? And the reality is that he may never have actually had any inkling to go to North Carolina State. What he probably was doing, I think, was just seeing what his market value is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so this is a long-winded story of just saying social media actually caused this to happen, because he was also interviewed for the head coaching role at Syracuse, which he declined. And the reason that wasn't as big of a deal before all this is because no one knew about it as it was happening. So in other words, if you know something's going on in real time as it's happening, that can create a lot of problems. And in his case, the optics looked really bad because, you know, you're telling everybody how much you love St. Louis. You just signed your name to a 6-year, $20 million deal, and then here you are meeting with these guys. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But if we didn't know about that, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
And no one would have been upset. And so I just think that people forget that. Like, that's actually the reason that if not for that behind-the-scenes look, if not for seeing how the sausage is made, then nobody would have been upset in the first place. Mm-hmm. And how are we to know that he wasn't interviewed by other schools? Maybe he was. and after he signed.
How many calls did he have that he didn't even take? He didn't even entertain a meeting. Yeah, I think that's a double-edged sword of social media, I think.
Well, it is.
It can show somebody your worth, but then it also can break them at the same time, you know? And yeah, you know, it's for a guy like that, you know, he's probably got a wife and kids and, you know, family and all that type of stuff. Having to go see you know what your worth is. Hey, let me see if the grass is greener on the other side of the field. And you know you have to weigh loyalty but also you know you got to provide for your family.
Yeah, so I think that ultimately I don't think he ever was gonna go to NC State, because I think if he was going to, he would have. I think that he just wanted to find out, even though it had only been like a week since he got another offer or since he signed his deal. What's my street value now?
Yeah.
And what that also does, you know, it also makes SLU, it gives him more leverage with SLU.
I was just about to
also.
say, leverage just in case SLU's ever thinking in the future, hey, should we keep this guy? He's like, well, I got NC State over there. I got, you know, this option.
And not even just for that though. There's the second aspect of the NIL money, which is the money that brings in the talent, right? So now SLU, their NIL budget for this coming season is $10 million, which for a school in the A10, which for us, you know, they're not Duke, they're not Arizona, they're not Michigan, who are spending $20 million, but $10 million is a huge jump from what they had. So, in a way, even though it might have hurt the fan base a little bit, it's like this is going to hurt you a lot more than it's going to hurt me, type of thing. He did leverage it, and now SLU has more money to play with to bring in more talent. So in a way, he was actually improving the program while he was pissing off the program and the fans.
There you go. Genius.